Hello internet users and welcome back to another video. Breaking games is a topic that I'm no stranger to. Being able to exploit a game's mechanics to do unintended things can be pretty amusing. But becoming so familiar with your favorite game to the point where you can skip past many of its intended events and bosses is especially satisfying. Whether it's through a complicated glitch or the developers just overlook something simple, many people have found enjoyment from discovering how to play a game in a completely roundabout way. The most common examples of this involve things such as skipping to the final boss after ignoring many elements of the main quest, or figuring out how to sneak past that one NPC without doing the thing they ask you to do. This is often referred to as sequence breaking, and it's existed in games for decades. What first made me interested in this was the Pokemon series. I'm sure like many of you watching this video, at one point, I like to search the internet looking up all kinds of glitches I could do in these games. Having beaten them several times already, it was interesting to learn about how even the smallest exploits could be used to skip major portions of the games, and figuring out how to apply these alongside smaller skips would allow me to create an absolute mess of a playthrough. What got me thinking about this topic again was a discovery in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. As I was playing the game, it was pointed out to me that a major game-breaking discovery had been made. Ordinarily, there is this NPC blocking the road towards Sunnyshore. In a normal playthrough, this person will always stop you from going there until you have 7 badges and have completed the events at the top of Spear Pillar. However, it was quickly found that if the player manages to rush into this event trigger on the bike and hatches an egg at the same time he'd stop you, you'll be able to push past him once the hatching is over. By doing this, I was able to reach Sunnyshore with only 3 badges. I was also able to defeat Volkner like normal, and was able to earn the final badge incredibly early in the game. If I had known about this just a little sooner, I could have even done this with only 2 badges if I wanted. What makes this sequence break a little bit different than the old ones though, is that nowadays, this sort of thing can get patched out with updates. But when it comes to all these glitches and exploits in Gen 1, you can still do most of them today without any issues. So for this video, I want to go back and show off some of the most amusing sequence breaks for Red, Blue, and Yellow that almost anybody can do. So without further delay, let's break some Pokemon games again. To start, one of the easiest and smallest tricks that can be done is the bicycle skip. In a normal playthrough, once the player obtains the Pokéflute from Mr. Fuji, they gain access to 2 roads that lead to Fuchsia City. One of these is incredibly long and is filled with several unskippable trainers. The other is Cycling Road, which is an incredibly quick and straightforward path to Fuchsia. The only quote-unquote downside of taking this path is that you must have previously backtracked for the bike in Cerulean City. But if you don't feel like doing that, you can easily ignore the guard at Cycling Road by simply holding down left on the D-pad. Apparently, there is a small window where it is still possible to move your character when the guard stops you. If you simply keep moving forward, you end up past the guard's event trigger and the scene finishes. And when you enter into Cycling Road, your character will still be put on a bike anyway. Since the guard is supposed to be the one checking your inventory for the bike, the game just puts you in this state here, assuming you must have it. And if you're wondering, no, this does not work in the remakes. It's a very minor, but still fun trick to use. This next one, though, will allow you to skip over a lot more than that. In Lavender Town, the player must climb the Pokemon Tower to rescue Mr. Fuji. However, the entire dungeon is filled with ghosts that cannot be attacked. In order to deal with this, the player must head to Celadon City and go through all of Team Rocket's hideout below the game corner. Once Giovanni is defeated, he leaves behind a Sylph Scope, a device that reveals the ghost's true forms as Pokemon. Ordinarily, this is only required for dealing with one particular ghost near the end of the tower. Before you can climb up to the final floor, the ghost of Marowak will attack the player. Unlike the other ghosts though, when you run from this fight, you'll be pushed backwards. This forces you to find the Sylph Scope to battle and defeat Marowak in order to progress. However, the developers actually overlooked something incredibly funny here. If you were to ignore getting the Sylph Scope and went all the way to Marowak's ghost, you could instead use a Pokédoll to escape the battle. If you resolve the battle this way, the game doesn't treat it the same as if you use the runaway option. The game will progress as if you had defeated the ghost. As you can imagine, this sequence break is pretty huge. By simply buying a Pokédoll, you can skip going through an entire area that's filled with trainers and all of those painfully slow tiles. Nothing game-breaking occurs by doing this. In fact, if you continue the playthrough normally, during the next encounter with Giovanni, he will talk as if you had met him before. Once again, this is another one that doesn't work in the remakes. They realized the mistake and made sure that the Pokédoll doesn't treat this like a victory anymore. Next, let's talk about some skips that can be done by using the game's trading mechanic. In Pokemon, HM moves are used in the overworld to make progress. In order to use them, you need a Pokemon with the move and a badge from a specific gym leader. The badge requirement is in place to prevent players from trading over a Pokemon that already knows the HM and skipping over several areas in the game. However, this is not a flawless system, and it's still possible to trade Pokemon and do things in the incorrect order. The first major example of this can be done in Saffron City. Once you reach this town, the only way to move forward is meant to be through this one house in the northeast corner. However, this officer will block the doorway until the player goes through the entirety of the northern route and speaks to Bill at his cottage. The only thing to do in this city is to battle Misty, whose badge allows you to use the HM move for Cut. Normally, the player doesn't receive the item for teaching Cut until they go to the SS Anne in Vermilion City. But if the player were to defeat Misty and then send a Pokemon over from another game that already knows Cut, they would be able to use it on the tree in the southern part of town. By doing one simple trade, the player can skip having to go see Bill and going to the SS Anne altogether in their playthrough. What's also interesting is how this was addressed in the Fire Red and Leaf Green remakes. This specific tree is actually blocked off by an NPC when you first reach the town, and she will not move out of the way until the player has spoken to Bill and received the ticket for the SS Anne. Another fun thing you can do with this sequence break is mess around with the game's rival encounters. The rival is meant to appear and battle the player at both of these skip locations, so if you were to skip them, go all the way to the Pokemon League and defeat him there, you could still go back and do the skipped battles, where his Pokemon are now suddenly a lot lower in level. As for the other HMs, the only significant skip is for the Safari Zone. In a normal playthrough, you're required to go inside of the Safari Zone to claim HM Surf, and to find the gold teeth to exchange for HM Strength. Surf is required for reaching Cinnabar Island, and Strength is required at the end of the game to get through Victory Road. Although this isn't as huge as trading an early Pokemon with Cut, if you want to, it is still possible to do the same with Surf and Strength to ignore ever visiting the Safari Zone. This next sequence break is one of my favorites, and is one that I messed around with frequently when I was younger. Unfortunately, it's the only one that's a bit difficult to do nowadays, as it requires a copy of Pokemon Stadium 2 and an N64 transfer pack. One of the features available in Pokemon Stadium 2 is the ability to store and transfer items between games. While this obviously can't be used for key items, there happens to be a few normal items that can be used for sequence breaking if they're sent to a save file that isn't very far into the game. In Generation 1, the player cannot access Saffron City until they give a drink to one of the guards at the gates. The drink items can only be purchased at Celadon City, so you're not intended to enter Saffron until you've at least made it here. However, if you were to take a completed game and store one of the drinks on Stadium 2, and then send it to a fresh save file, that game would be able to enter Saffron City as soon as they leave Cerulean City for the first time. Saffron City is a huge location with 4 surrounding gates that lead to other major locations in the game. Gaining access to this place so early on is quite literally a game changer. The main benefit of doing this is that it skips having to do all of Route 9 and Rock Tunnel. But another thing that makes this pretty cool is how it suddenly allows you to do several things in the game in any order you wish. Of course, this was another situation that can't happen in the remakes. This time, in order to pass by Saffron's guards, you have to get a specific drink that now counts as a key item. The main reason this change was made was because by this generation, Pokemon were now able to hold items. If the drink wasn't changed to a key item, then it would have been very simple to just trade over a Pokemon holding one to a save file that hadn't made it too far yet. What's also interesting is how Pokemon Stadium 1 actually had measures in place to prevent the player from doing this exact skip. Stadium 2 allows any game to store and transfer items around, as long as they were of the same generation, but in Stadium 1, any stored items were tied to the name and trainer ID that they came from, so they could not be transferred. Moving on, we have one more sequence break that I want to share in this video. This one might seem a little bit complicated at first, but bear with me, as it's easily one of the best you can do. To understand this though, I first need to explain the Pewter City gym skip. When you first arrive in Pewter City, you cannot continue forward until you earn the first badge. If you try to do so, this youngster will stop you and take you to the front of the gym every time. Over the years though, many people have discovered glitches which allow you to ignore this particular NPC. One of these methods goes as follows. First, stand on this tile right here, being one step away from the youngster's gaze. Second, open your menu and leave the cursor on the save option before closing it. Next, you need to walk forward, activating his dialogue. When you reach the last text box before he starts escorting you to the gym, you need to quickly close his text, specifically with the B button, and then press start to open your menu before the scene plays. When the menu is open this way, you cannot move the cursor, so this is why we previously left it on the save option. From here, we want to select save, and once this finishes, we need to reset the game. When we load in again, the scene will try to play, but it will obviously seem a bit distorted. After you're taken to the gym though, this time when you return to the city's exit, you'll find that the youngster has disappeared. The tiles in front of him that normally prompt the scene are still active, but if you walk specifically where he used to be standing, you can pass by and continue the game without having to complete Pewter Gym. I should also note that as soon as you go back to the Pewter City map, the youngster will load in properly again. Being able to do a skip like this early on might seem pretty cool, but you're still going to need to come back and face Brock eventually. You'll still need his badge at the end of the game to enter the Pokemon League, so despite the name of this trick, you're not exactly skipping Brock, but putting him off for later. However, by doing this setup under the right circumstances, it actually becomes possible to do a trick that breaks the entire game wide open. To do this, you're going to need to have a very specific Bulbasaur in your party. It must be level 8, know the moves Leech Seed, Tackle, and Growl, all of which must be put in that exact order and have a certain amount of PP left. Tackle must have 16, and Growl must have 36. Now, once the Pewter Gym skip has been done, walk backwards a bit and return to the youngster, standing on his right side. Normally, the developers never intended for this character to be spoken to directly from the right, so if you try to activate his scene, the game won't know what to do, and will stay frozen like this until you reset. However, if you were to open up the party menu and view the stats of the prepared Bulbasaur, then close and speak to the youngster, not only will you be able to move this time, but you'll gain the ability to walk through walls. This ability will last until you enter a building or cave entrance, or save and reload the game. Essentially, you get to go wherever you want across the entire overworld for only this instance. The goal now is to figure out how much of the game can be skipped before you're required to enter a building to continue. Something to keep in mind though, while walking through walls, if you go too far out of bounds, the game will crash, not having a proper map to load in for you. You also can't use this to go right to the Pokemon League. You technically can skip over the first gate, but the guards that check badges will block you from proceeding any further. All tiles to their left and right will prompt them to stop you, and this extends all the way to the bounds of the map, so you can't just get around them. Keeping this in mind, I think the best way to make use of this glitch is to go right from Pewter to Celadon City. Once you're there, you'll be able to buy the drinks to open up Saffron, and can even pick up the gift Eevee to help make up for your under-leveled party. Another possibility is to go all the way to Pewter City. You can easily head into the Safari Zone and catch Pokemon there, not needing to rely on your early game team. The only drawback of this is that you won't be able to backtrack for a bit. If you try to go backwards on any of the routes that lead to Fuchsia, you'll be blocked by the sleeping Snorlax since you skipped the Pokeflute. The only way forward here would be to get the HM for Surf, defeat Koga, then surf at the southern exit, go through the Seafoam Islands, and go all the way back to Pallet Town, where you'll be forced to walk all the way back to Pewter City. However, if you kept that Bulbasaur set up, then you can activate the glitch again, and gain another instance where you can go anywhere in the overworld. Be careful though. While you certainly can go wherever you want, it wears off after entering a building, so it's possible to softlock yourself. For example, if you were to activate the glitch and go directly to Cinnabar Island, you would be trapped there and be unable to leave. With no Pokemon that can learn Surf or even the badge to use it, your Pokemon journey would be over if you saved there. On the other hand, you can also do this intentionally to cause some amusing results. You could head all the way to Fuchsia and then save inside one of the Pokemon Zoo displays. Now every time this file is loaded, the player will find themselves permanently stuck in a cage as the citizens of Fuchsia City do nothing to help. But anyways, however you decide to apply this glitch, I think the best part about it is how it allows you to play the game in a very different way, especially if you combine this with any of the previously mentioned sequence breaks. And that about covers everything I wanted to talk about for this video. Gen 1 can be a pretty broken game, but one of the more amusing ways to play is to do things completely out of order. By utilizing its glitches, it's possible to do some very absurd playthroughs. Some people even go as far as trying to beat the game by getting the badges in the reverse order. But anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this video. My name is Picasbury, and thanks for watching. Hey everybody, thanks for watching the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Took me a little bit to make. If you want to see more, I guess you can like and subscribe, all that stuff there. And if you want to see me stream, there should be a link for that down in the description below. That's it for now. Have a good night. Bye-bye.